I don't know about you, but almost any time of the year, I am open for a good ghost story. I've always been like that. I've always been fascinated with things that go bump in the night, the paranormal, whatever you want to call it. I've always had a great fascination for it. So every single year on Halloween on my radio show, we share ghost stories from the callers. And that is what this is. This is a compilation of those ghost stories from our show, October 31st, 2011. This is our first caller. Go ahead.
The old Augusta Hospital, after it was abandoned, a portion of it was turned into an airsoft course. And I had some friends that worked in the airsoft course, and they told me that they would let me into the quote-unquote haunted part of the hospital after they shut down the course for the night.
Okay.
So me and my girlfriend went up there. I sat in the parking lot and put brand new batteries in my camera so we could take pictures to see if we caught anything strange on our photos. So we go into the hospital, and no joke, the second we cross the doors from the airsoft course to the haunted part of the hospital, my camera said that my batteries were dead and it quit working. So we go in, and we went into the cancer ward of the hospital, and this place is super creepy. It's like people just got up one day and left and decided not to come back. Like there was patient files everywhere, wheelchairs, beds, gurneys, super creepy. So we go into this room, and it's painted pink, and it has this lady's picture all over it, and I started feeling really, really sick. Started feeling nauseous and lightheaded and almost fainted, so they were, like, helping carry me out of the room, and we sat in the hallway until I started feeling better. So then we were sitting there, and we were just asking questions to see if we could get any response, and I felt somebody start running their fingers through my hair, and it was pronounced enough that I could see my hair lifting off of my shoulder, and I thought it was the guy sitting next to me, so I said, "Nick, cut it out." And he said, "I'm not doing anything." And I said, "That's really funny. Don't do that." He's like, "No, seriously, I'm not doing anything." And I looked down. I had a hold of his left hand, and his right hand was holding a baseball bat that we had taken for protection because I guess you can hit a ghost with a baseball bat.
So unless he had a third hand...
Correct. And the only thing that I can think of is we were in the cancer section, so maybe the weird feelings that I got in the room, the only thing that I could think of is if I had gone through chemo, that's what I would feel like.
Sure.
And that somebody had lost their hair and was admiring my hair.
That's a very interesting observation.
And as soon as we left the hospital, my camera was fully charged. Started working the instant we left.
It's very peculiar that you hear that same story about batteries.
About batteries,
all the time. It's the same occurrence all the time with locations, just as you're describing. Thank you for the call. More ghost stories. Let's go to our next caller. Hello.
We moved into a home that was a little spooky to start with. My husband and I were laying in bed one night, and we had brought our newborn daughter into this home, and the walls weren't real well insulated between the bedrooms. My two girls' bedroom was next to ours. We heard our newborn daughter kind of start fussing, and we heard her bottle fall out of the crib. You could just about hear its steps. It fall out of the crib, hit the wall, and hit the floor. She started crying. She started fussing. And we thought, okay, well, why we both got up, we still can't figure it out. But we both got up to go in and check on her. And it took us a few minutes by the time, we got our robes on and our slippers. And by the time we got into their bedroom, she was tucked in. Now, if you know a newborn, when they start fussing, they'll wiggle and squiggle and cry and fuss a little bit. By the time we got into their bedroom, the bottle was in her mouth, propped up to her mouth, and she was completely tucked in around her neck, and she was sound asleep again. From that day on, it seemed like whatever this was protecting the kids, the girls.
Your ghost was almost a live-in nanny.
Yes, it was. It was like it protected our girls.
Very, very interesting. Stories of spirits that are good, and there's a lot of stories of spirits that are not so good. Some may even call them evil. You're on the air with the Tony Bruschi Halloween Special 2011. What is your story?
Okay, I just moved into my house. I've been here for about a year, and I've had a surveillance camera up, and I actually videotaped a ghost walking through the neighborhood.
You videotaped a ghost walking through the neighborhood. Describe this. What did you see?
Well, he's kind of transparent, that you can still see the form, and he walks across the road and up on the sidewalk, and there's a big, large light behind him, somebody's yard light, and he's dark in front of that, and then he still continues to walk down the sidewalk. I actually have the video up on YouTube if you want to see it.
I would love to see that. What do I need to search to find it?
Haunted Neighborhood, and it's in Moundridge, Kansas.
Haunted Neighborhood with real ghost? Is that what it is?
That's it.
Because right now I'm seeing like an SUV. Okay, I see something walking or moving. Oh my gosh! It's
Isn't
like
it cool?
it's like it glides. It almost looks like it glides past or almost through the vehicle.
Yes.
Let me ask you this: why did you have a security camera aiming out at that area?
Because I was filming my Suburban because I had it vandalized a couple of times.
Okay. That is a creepy, creepy video. That just
Isn't
gives
it
me
cool?
shivers. Yeah. I have seen a lot of videos that are said to portray a spirit or an entity or a ghost. And my friend, your video right there is one of them that just gives me the shivers. You see a lot of those and you can almost very quickly pinpoint what's going on here. The camera's at a weird place or a weird angle, and you know there's something else going on that may not be so supernatural. But your video, that's one to check out. That is very, very spooky. Let's go to our next call. You are on the air.
My uncle and aunt had bought a mirror at a garage sale, and one night my uncle kept hearing somebody in the house. So he kept getting up and checking on the kids and checking the house, and they were all fine, and he didn't find anything. Well, for about 3 times he got up. When he comes back that 3rd time, the spirit had taken over his wife, and she was sitting against the headboard of the bed, and she was trying to tell him that it was the mirror, to get rid of the mirror, and the spirit would not let her do it. And finally, she was able to get it out. Well, then it made her attack him, and it went after him, and she was this little under 5 foot, little bitty person, and he grabbed the mirror and threw it out the back door, and when it shattered, she collapsed, and she was in bed for 2 weeks from the exhaustion of that thing taking her over. She remembers it taking her over and having no control. All he could think is, she's going to kill me, and then she's going to kill my kids.
You hear a lot of stories about mirrors and haunted mirrors. It makes you almost wonder, what is going on with those images that a mirror captures? What about you? But there's always been times where I'm in a bathroom late at night and the lights are very dim, and I purposely avoid gazing into that mirror. Maybe silly, but I don't want to ever find myself in this situation where I'm gazing into that mirror, glancing at that mirror, and I see someone else or something else in the room that shouldn't be there. Let's go to our next call. You're on the air.
I used to live in a really, real old house on North Market that had one of those real small servant stairways.
Okay.
And it would always get cold at a certain time of the night. And one day I was going up to the attic to get something, and there was a person standing up there.
A person standing at the top of the stairway or in the attic?
Yeah.
Could you make out what the person was wearing or what the person looked like?
She looked like a slave.
How so? Like, describe what you saw.
She was a person. She had her hair back in a bandana. Her face was tinted black. I did do some research on the house, and it ended that one of the servants had fallen down the stairs.
And died?
And died.
On the very same stairwell that you saw this woman?
Yes, the servant stairs. Yeah, because we had one huge staircase, but then there was one off the kitchen or the pantry, whatever you want to call it, that was like real narrow, that went the full length of the house, from the top to the bottom.
Wow, very interesting. When you hear stories like that, you almost wonder what exactly is that, especially when they're in the same area where they would have passed away at. Why are they still in that exact same area if they're...
It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah. I had a similar situation when I lived in an apartment. There was a stairwell that was on the wall just behind my bed on the other side of the wall, and it had been said many times that people would see the image of a woman basically floating up and down that stairwell carrying a baby. And apparently at some point in time there had been an accident where a woman had fallen down the stairs with her child, and both had died on that stairwell, but people continue to see that same repetition of that image going up and down that stairwell over and over and over. And it's curious because it's almost like the entity or whatever it is isn't conscious of what it's doing. It's just this residual energy that goes and replays itself, and like a videotape of some sort. Let's go to our next caller. What's your story?
When I was 3, so this has been years ago, I was moving in with my grandmother, and I can remember one night that we heard something in the basement that sounded like chains dragging across the basement floor.
What sort of a house was this?
This is an old rock house that was built in the 1880s that was actually burial ground were disturbed when they built the house there, and so now they will haunt that house. I can remember chains rattling on the basement floor, like you had a big tow chain and you were dragging it across the basement floor.
Sure.
And so my grandmother called one of her friends who was full-blooded Cherokee Indian. He said to go out and shoot over the house 3 times with a shotgun, not a rifle, and that it would never bother you again. He did that, and the chains never happened again.
Can performing a ritual make an entity or a spirit go away? Something to think about. Many cultures and traditions have very specific steps that are said to be taken to rid oneself of an entity or a spirit. Does that actually work? In this case, it sounds like it did. Let's go to our next ghost story caller. You're on the air. Hi.
There's a housing addition that was built on top of the old Mount Carmel Academy, which was built in the 1890s.
Okay.
And when these houses were being built on this former property, there was one of the neighbors that we met, and their little boy at the time was 12, and he had a basement bedroom, and he kept saying that ladies walked through the basement and through the room, and their dog would bark every night when they first moved in. They hadn't been there for maybe a week, and he kept seeing these ladies. He described them as ladies walking through the room and through the basement. Well, of course, they just thought he was. Now, he had no idea that there was a Catholic school on this location built in the 1890s. Anyway, about a week later, their dog died. And the vet said that it was a heart attack. Well, about a month later, I had actually picked up some pictures from the Cape and Mount Carmel school of what the area used to look like, and they had donated some pictures since we lived there. The little neighbor boy was looking through them one night with his parents, and he said, "Mom, those are the ladies, that looks like the ladies that went through the basement all the time."
It's one of those stories where, children, they of course can make up stories quite a bit, but that's one of those stories where the feeling in the deepness of your gut, you just know that little boy is very likely telling the truth about what he was seeing. He saw those nuns going through his room. It sounds like another one of those stories of the residual energy and it replaying itself over and over and over throughout time, almost unconsciously. Very interesting. You're on the air. What's your story?
It's been a few years back, but we had a slide-in camper.
Okay.
And we was down at Call Lake, and wind was not blowing. We're sitting at the little booth by a window, and I had the window open. And all of a sudden, the screen came off and started floating around inside. Wife and I were ducking underneath it, and it was by the back screen door. I opened the door, and it went out and laid out in the grass.
When you say floating around inside,
yeah,
describe that. Like what?
It was just floating in the air.
Suspended, sitting there?
It was just kind of hover, moving around inside our camper.
And then it went right back out the window and landed outside.
I went to the back door and opened it, and it went out the back door and laid down.
What did you do after that?
Well, I didn't know what to do. Friends already seen it come out camping with us, and they wondered what happened. I told them. They said, "Oh, Must have been the wind, but there wasn't any wind.
Well, even wind wouldn't suspend something like that in the air.
I have no idea, but there wasn't any wind blowing.
Well, have you ever seen wind suspend a screen physically in the air like that?
No, I haven't.
That wouldn't be wind, my friend.
I don't know. It would. There was no wind, but it just floated around inside and hovered, and it went towards the back door. But I opened up the screen door, and they just went on out the back door.
So what do you think? What do you think it was?
I have no idea. But I know I'm a little leery about picking it up, putting it back, but we sold it shortly after
that. For good reason.
Yes, I don't know what it was.
I have a good guess as to what it was. I don't know of any sort of pressure change or wind event that would cause something that heavy to suspend itself in the air without the rest of the room being in massive disrepair. That's very, very peculiar. Let's go to our next caller. You're on the air.
There was an old mansion where I used to live in upstate New York.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was about 3 or 4 of us that got together, and every now and then the person, that caretaker of it, they'd let us go through. Well, we happened to find this one door, and it was, you would have never noticed it was a, what's the word I want to use? It was, it looked like the wall, but we pressed it, and there was a wall, and it opened up, and we went through this little alleyway, like in behind the wall.
Sure, so it was a secret door.
Yeah, and oh my God, we were walking through it. It gives me goosebumps thinking about it. And there was cobwebs hanging down and everything. And we got halfway through the little hallway, and all of a sudden, because we had like a flashlight, our flashlight went out. Now, it's battery operated. It went out. And there was a breeze. You could feel it. It didn't take us long to get out of there.
And you were in a confined area where there wouldn't have been a way for a breeze to come in.
No, there wasn't.
That's very spooky. Especially with a flashlight going out, because that's one of those things you always hear of. If there's some sort of energy or entity in the area, it just sucks all the life out of electronic devices, especially batteries.
And it did. It just went off. And then when we turned around, we started running backward. We come through, and we were, I'd say maybe 20 feet from where we come in. The light come back on. It was like, oh, no, you ain't coming through here. It was spooky. I mean, it was crazy. And I was probably about 14 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, it still sticks with you. It's like, oh, my God, you're going through this secret, hallway in behind everything. And then all of a sudden, your light goes off. And there was about 4 of us girls, my sisters and a friend of ours. And then, I mean, there was no way nobody could have done that, because we thought about it afterwards. Well, was there somebody in there? How would it do the flashlight?
I wonder if whatever it was trying to keep you away from something, and what was it?
Yeah, we still to this day, we never went back.
I don't blame you. You're lucky that all you experienced was that cold chill in such an environment. That could have been an experience that could have ended in a very, very, very different way. One more call for our 2011 ghost stories. I'm Tony Bruschi. Let's hear yours.
12 years ago, my niece died in the apartment that I had built into my barn.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple days after she had passed away, I got up to go make coffee, and I walked through the living room, and she was sitting in the rocking chair. And I told her, I said, let me go make the coffee, babe, and I'll be right back so we can visit. And I got partway making the coffee, and it dawned on me that was her spirit, and I ran back in there, but she was already gone. I just kicked myself for not paying more attention.
So you had just kind of gone in there, nonchalantly thought, oh, here she is, because it was so routine for her to be there.
Exactly. It was very routine for her to come over and just walk on in and sit and wait to visit.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, messed up big time on that one, because she didn't ever come back and see me again.
What do you think she wanted to say?
I am not. It was a suicide, so
okay.
I'm not real sure, but I surely would have liked to have found out.
Would you say it's at all reassuring at all, though? I mean, to know in the way that she passed
seemed,
that...
Right, she seemed content at that point and doing the routine things. Yeah, it really was comforting, other than I would have liked to have known what was going on other than reading her journal. So, yeah.
But just being able to see her, almost being able to know that she's still out there on some plane.
Exactly. She's still with us.
It makes you wonder, just what are these stories all about? Are they our loved ones that have passed on? Are they good spirits and bad spirits and pure evil spirits? Are they just energy that are on a plane or is on a plane that we don't understand and don't really know about yet with modern science, that just continues to repeat itself over and over, whether we like it or not, and every once in a while, due to whatever atmospheric condition that's present at the time, makes itself visible to our own eyes? These are the questions that I've always asked when it came to what we call ghosts, and still the same questions that I ask to this day. Sometimes sharing stories makes you think that you'll get closer to finding that answer, but I find the more stories that I hear, the more unsure I am of the answer to that question. For our 2011 Ghost Stories, I'm Tony Bruschi. Thanks for listening.